Basil Basileus, A Test of Loyalty. Hey there guys, it's your boy McMix with a review on an amazing new comic book which is already available on Amazon. Basil Basileus, Book 1, A Test of Loyalty, and Book 2. Story by Spyros Theocharis and art by Chrysa Sakel. This is gonna be kind of a mixed video. It's gonna be a little bit of a who was the real Emperor Basil, an introduction to this amazing emperor, and also a review on this great new comic book. Who was the real Emperor Basil? So, Emperor Basil II, or the Bulgar Slayer, is considered to be one of the most influential emperors of the Byzantine Empire. In fact, in the 1,000-year history of the Byzantine Empire, he was the longest ruling emperor. He was a master tactician who defeated every single enemy that opposed him, restored the glory of the Byzantine Empire, and is still respected to this day even by his opponents. A true visionary and a warrior emperor who didn't shy away from actually joining his armies into expeditions, and who crushed anyone who sought to weaken the empire from within and from the outside. There's an amazing video on his life and victories by the Kings and Generals YouTube channel. The story of the first 2 volumes of this comic book covers the early years of Emperor Basil's life with a heavy focus on the political intrigue of the court and the rebellions that threatened his rule. It's like Game of Thrones, but, the first well-written seasons. And the craziest thing of all, these events actually happen. This is not a fantasy or just a narrative someone came up with. The story. The year is 971 AD. The throne of the Byzantine Empire is contested by multiple parties. We have the 2 crimson-born brothers of the Macedonian dynasty, Basil and Constantinos. Check and check. So pretty accurate so far. They've been raised by the court nobility and depend on their counselors, Uranus and Lekapinos. These 2 are also real-life figures, so check and check. Nice. Their father is dead and their mother, Augusta Theophano, has been forced into exile. With a young and inexperienced ruler in the throne, various influential generals, such as General Vardas, are in open revolt, seeking to usurp the throne, which is exactly how the real events played out. Now, we don't have many written reports about the early years of Basil, how he was raised, how he was feeling, but this comic book does an amazing job of depicting how difficult it must have been to be in that court. Because remember, Basil and Constantinos were 2 young boys who were crowned emperors that had no one to actually depend on. Their father was killed and there was no one to trust. And I love that. I love the fact that this comic book depicts it so realistically and accurately. In the beginning of the story, we meet Sigurd, the Viking warrior who functions as the co-protagonist of the series, driving much of the plot. He will become a member of the famous Varangian Guard, an elite Byzantine force guiding and protecting a young Basil. Now, I'm not going to spoil anything more from the story, but I'll tell you this, Sigurd may not be a real historical figure, but the author of the story has used Sigurd in a very clever way by introducing the Byzantine court and the main actors of the story through him. As Sigurd learns about Constantinople and is introduced to the various figures, so does the audience. It's a fish out of water story, but done well. In terms of accuracy, I have to admit I was shocked with how accurate and true to the real-life events this story was. The creators of the comic, with the help of historical texts and members of the academia, have done a magnificent job researching the era, depicting the various historical figures with accuracy, and to their credit, giving a very realistic and honest portrayal of the times. They neither glorify nor slander any faction or culture, and even respectfully portray cultural differences between the various peoples. There's also a healthy balance between politics and action scenes in the story, unlike other Byzantine manga, like Anna Komnene for instance. Art. The Art of Basil, A Test of Faith, and Volume 2 is colorful, detailed with clear lines and paneling. The artist, Chrysa Sakel, has done a fantastic job when it comes to the clothes, architecture, and the color palette. She has really captured the elegance and the glamour of the Byzantine fashion and the unique architecture of the city of cities, Constantinople, and of the entire Anatolia region. I just love the design of Sigurd and Basil. These two really stand out. I'm not going to go deeper into Basil's life, and I'm not going to spoil anything that happens in the comic book, because I think this deserves a separate video with the end of his rule and what happened later. Some minor issues I had with the comic book. Even though I would love to give this comic a perfect score, there are a couple of things that could be improved upon. In terms of story, sometimes I had difficulty remembering who was who in the court. There are many characters, advisors, eunuchs, noblemen, etc. And although they are all properly introduced, there is no character archive to go back to in the case you forgot someone's identity. Like, for example, look at Hirohiko Araki's JoJolion. Every volume comes with a page that shows a small picture of the character and a small description of who they are related to other characters. Furthermore, although the story is captivating and very accurate, the dialogues were a bit stiff a couple of times in the story. Someone would say, "There's nothing you can do, Basil," and Basil would respond, "You're right, there is nothing I can do." Instead of, "Oh well, it appears there's nothing I can do." I would like a little bit more color and more emotion in the dialogues. But, this only happened 1 or 2 times, so not a big issue, but it was kind of noticeable. Finally, I think there's still room for improvement in the facial expressions of the characters. The verdict. The first 2 volumes of Basil Basileus are incredibly accurate, detailed, and well written. You really get to feel the heavy burden that our protagonist, Basil, has to carry, and the horror of being a young emperor trapped in a palace filled with enemies. The world of the Byzantine Empire is colorful, vibrant, and feels very much alive. Just like the Anna Komnene manga, Basil Basileus is a really important work in the attempt to shed light and show appreciation to one of the greatest empires in human history. I would give it a 8.5 out of 10, and I would highly recommend it if you love medieval history and historical thrillers. If you're interested in Byzantine history and culture, then it is a must-buy. The first volume is already on Amazon, and I assume that the second volume will be as well. Honestly, I can't wait for the next volumes and the continuation of the story. The package also included some really fun stickers and a letter of appreciation from the creators, so these were really cute, really nice. Thank you so much. Are you interested in learning more about historical figures that have appeared in comics, anime, and manga? Then check out my other videos on who was the real Thorfinn Karlsefni, who was the real James Moriarty, the real Arte, and what were the real Cestus. For more seinen and historical manga, hit like and smash the subscribe button. I will continue with more videos on Byzantine characters because I have Anna Komnene to cover, another amazing Byzantine themed manga. So stay tuned, guys. And thank you for supporting this channel. Until next time, fellow emperors.